Hello and welcome back to I Completed 80s Music. I'm the 80s Mixtaper, your host on this deepest of deep dives into the best, brightest and strangest songs of the 1980s. For the uninitiated, in 2016, looking for a hobby, I had the mad idea to try and listen to every single top 40 entry from the 31st of December 1979 to the 31st of December 1989. Approximately 3,000 good songs and a spot of COVID later, and I'd done it. This podcast was born of that idea. In it, I take the songs which caught my eye, dissect them, and we're doing it in calendar order. Unfortunately, due to copyright laws, I can't actually play the songs in the pod, so you'll hear a short introduction from me to the track, and then I've put links to playlists for Spotify and Apple Music in the episode description, so you can pause the pod and listen along. We'll then talk about each artist and the song in depth. Before we get back into the pod and playlist 11, we have some more listener comments. We love your feedback here, whether it's recollections of concerts, general fandom, or even corrections, of which there's probably quite a few. So Gillian D, 19, on the Cures of Forest, says, volume up, love the echoiness of this great track. Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. As introductions go, The Forest lets you know what The Cure were about, and they were here to stay. It's an absolutely superb single. User 3960173149220 on Blondie's Call Me says, I fell in love with Blondie, I think, when I was 13. Yeah, I'd have been literally a dot when the track came out, but once I figured out girls, probably about the age of 12, Debbie Harry was an absolute smoke show, there's no doubt about it. Very sexy, great fashion sense, just smouldering, absolutely loved her. And then Juanfer Camacho 24 on Christopher Cross's Ride Like the Wind. I had to translate this one, so this might not be too great, but in translation it was, he took all the Grammys. I enjoyed this tall and intelligent chubby guy. Yep, great songwriter. He actually wrote a song which became my wife and my first dance at our wedding, but we will eventually get to that one on this pod. Spoilers. If you'd like to comment on the pod or any of the songs featured, you can either leave a comment on Instagram, Twitter or YouTube, where you can find me as the 80s Mixtaper. Or if you're old school like me and want to email in, my email is completed80s@aol.com. That's completed, 80s is 80s @aol.com. And now it's back to the music. It's Midsummer 1980. Let's get into it. Let's journey back to the summer of 1980, a year when the musical landscape was as varied as a disco ball's reflections. Amidst this vibrant scene, Olivia Newton-John, a rising star at the film and the Electric Light Orchestra, or ELO, collaborated on Xanadu, a track that would become emblematic of its era. This is our track one today. Xanadu served as the title track for the soundtrack of the film of the same name. The film Xanadu in 1980, directed by Robert Greenwald, is a whimsical fantasy musical that combines elements of romance, mythology, and disco-era aesthetics. The story follows Sonny Malone, played by Michael Beck, a frustrated artist working as a painter in Los Angeles. Sonny's life takes a fantastical turn when he encounters Kira, played by Olivia Newton-John, a mysterious and radiant woman who turns out to be Terpsichore, one of the 9 muses from Greek mythology. Kira inspires Sonny and an aging musician named Danny Maguire, played by Gene Kelly of all people, to pursue their dream of opening a roller disco nightclub called Xanadu. So how did that fare? Well, despite its ambitious premise and the star-studded cast, as you can guess, Xanadu was poorly received by critics upon its release. It was criticised for its thin plot, awkward dialogue, and over-the-top visuals, though its music and dance sequences garnered some praise. The film was a commercial disappointment, grossing only $23 million on a $20 million budget. It was even one of the inspirations for the creation of the Golden Raspberry Awards, known as the Razzies, which recognise the worst in cinema. However, over the years, Xanadu has gained a cult following, celebrated for its campy charm and nostalgic appeal. Fans embraced its colourful aesthetic, energetic soundtrack, and Olivia Newton-John's performance, giving it a second life as a beloved, if kitschy, cultural artefact. It was later adapted into a tongue-in-cheek Broadway musical in 2007, which leaned into its inherent absurdity and earned positive reviews. Back to the song was penned and produced by ELO's frontman, Jeff Lynne, who also contributed guitars, keyboards, and backing vocals. Olivia Newton-John delivered the lead vocals, with ELO providing the instrumentation. The recording took place in 1979 at Musicland Studios in Munich, a hub for numerous iconic artists of the time. The song Xanadu was the centrepiece of the film's soundtrack, played during the movie's climactic scene where the titular nightclub is unveiled in all its dazzling, neon-soaked glory. With its sweeping orchestration, disco beats, and Newton-John's ethereal vocals, the song perfectly encapsulates the film's dreamlike and fantastical tone. Upon its release on June 13th, 1980, Xanadu quickly ascended the charts. In the UK, it achieved the number 1 position on the UK singles chart, marking ELO's only UK chart-topping single. The song maintained this peak for 2 weeks in July 1980 and was subsequently certified silver by the British phonographic industry. Internationally, Xanadu reached number 1 in several countries, including Ireland, the Netherlands, and Norway. In the United States, it peaked at number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 and climbed to number 2 on the Adult Contemporary chart. Critics responded positively to the track. Billboard described it as a sizzling track, noting the combination of Newton-John's vocals with ELO's distinctive sound. The song's success was mirrored by the performance of the Xanadu soundtrack album, which achieved double platinum status. Despite the film's lackluster reception, the soundtrack became a worldwide success, earning positive reviews from music critics. In the years following its release, Xanadu has been covered by various artists and featured in multiple compilations, cementing its status as a classic. Notably, in 2000, Jeff Lynne re-recorded the song with his own vocals for the ELO box set Flashback and the compilation album All Over the World. Ultimately, while the film floundered, the music, especially Xanadu, achieved significant commercial success and helped cement the movie's legacy as a pop culture oddity. The song remains a quintessential example of early 80s pop, bridging the disco and synth-pop eras with cinematic flair. Next up, we're getting into one of the most haunting and enduring songs of the 20th century, a song revered like no other in indie circles and a constant inspiration to many artists. It is a song that you'll know if you've ever been to an indie night at a nightclub, as its usage is near universal. Joy Division's Love Will Tear Us Apart. This is our track 2. This is a song which demands a podcast in its own right. Indeed, I think there is one, so I will retell this story with as much grace and reverence as I can in the limited possibilities of a 5-minute segment. Released in 1980, Love Will Tear Us Apart is a song that feels less like a moment and more like an eternal elegy. It's a ghost that refuses to stop walking the halls of music history, its brilliance matched only by its tragedy. Let's talk about the band that created it, the loss that followed, and why Joy Division remains almost mythic in the pantheon of indie music. Joy Division's story begins in the industrial labyrinth of Manchester, England in 1976. Bernard Sumner and Peter Hook, just 2 regular guys from Salford, were electrified after seeing the Sex Pistols live. They didn't know much about instruments or even how to form a band, but punk had taught them that the only thing that mattered was that you could just do it. They posted an ad looking for a singer, and that's how they met Ian Curtis. Curtis was a charismatic enigma, a young man with a penchant for poetry, existential dread, and an almost otherworldly intensity. Stephen Morris joined later on drums, and the band was complete. Initially calling themselves Warsaw, they recorded a few raw, aggressive punk songs, but their sound quickly evolved into something more atmospheric and introspective. By 1978, now rebranded as Joy Division, they released their debut EP, An Ideal for Living. The punk edge was still there, but there was something darker brewing, an undercurrent of despair and beauty that hinted at what was to come. Joy Division's breakout moment came with Unknown Pleasures in 1979, their debut album produced by the legendary Martin Hannett. Hannett was the mad scientist at the mixing desk, and his production turned Joy Division into something transcendent. The stark minimalist cover, designed by Peter Saville, became as iconic as the music itself. Inside was a set of songs that sounded like Manchester's rain-soaked streets had come to life. Tracks like Disorder and She's Lost Control showcased Curtis's aching baritone and lyrics steeped in alienation and fragility. But behind the scenes, all was not well. Ian Curtis had been diagnosed with epilepsy, and the condition was taking a toll on his mental and physical health. The medication he was prescribed caused brutal side effects, and his life was further complicated by a deteriorating marriage and the pressures of the band's rising success. Love Will Tear Us Apart was recorded in late 1979, and its lyrics are a raw, devastating reflection of Curtis's inner turmoil. Lines like, "Why is the bedroom so cold?" "Turned away on your side" were painfully autobiographical, capturing the dissolution of his marriage. The song's shimmering, almost upbeat instrumentation, hooks, melodic bass line, Sumner's glistening guitar, Morris's precise drumming stands in stark contrast to the devastating emotions in Curtis's lyrics. That tension, that paradox, is part of what makes the song so unforgettable. The song was released in June 1980, but Ian Curtis never saw its release. On May the 18th, 1980, just 2 days before the band was scheduled to leave for their first US tour, Curtis took his own life. He was only 23. It's almost impossible to separate the song from that tragedy. Curtis's death cast a shadow over the music, transforming it from a great single into something sacred, a final message from an artist who was gone too soon. Love Will Tear Us Apart became a posthumous hit, reaching number 13 on the UK singles chart. Today it's often regarded as one of the greatest songs of all time. It's been covered by countless artists, from U2 to The Cure, and its influence on indie, goth and alternative music is immeasurable. The remaining members of Joy Division, devastated but determined to keep going, formed New Order. They took a different path, blending their post-punk roots with electronic dance music, and achieved massive success with songs like Blue Monday, but Joy Division was never forgotten. Their catalogue, just 2 studio albums and a handful of singles and a few live recordings, became legendary, a blueprint for what post-punk could be. What's extraordinary about Joy Division is how deeply their music continues to resonate. Maybe it's because their sound is timeless, or because maybe of the way Curtis's lyrics articulate something profoundly human, the ache of love, the weight of existence, the fragility of it all. Love Will Tear Us Apart isn't just a song, it's a monument. It's the sound of a man trying to make sense of his life, even as it was falling apart. In the years since, Joy Division has been mythologized, and rightly so. Their influence extends far beyond music, touching fashion, film and literature. Bands like Interpol, The National, and even Radiohead owe a debt to the sound Joy Division pioneered. And yet, it's Love Will Tear Us Apart that stands as their ultimate legacy. It's a song that feels as fresh and devastating today as it did over 4 decades ago. Curtis's death remains an absolute tragedy, but his music remains a gift, and this song enters our pantheon as a testament to the power of art to capture and transcend pain. Love Will Tear Us Apart is not just Joy Division's swan song, it's their immortality. For track 3 today, we turn our attention to a pivotal moment in the evolution of synth-pop, Ultravox's 1980 single Sleepwalk. We all know Vienna, which we'll come to in good time, but this particular track not only marked a significant transformation for the band, but also left an indelible imprint on the musical landscape of the early 1980s. This is track 3. Formed in London in 1974, Ultravox initially emerged under the moniker Tiger Lily. The original lineup featured John Fox as the frontman. John we met in episode 4.5 with his song Underpass, steering the band through a fusion of glam rock and electronic experimentation. The original lineup of the band also included Chris Cross on bass guitar, Stevie Shears on guitar, Billy Currie on keyboards and violin, and Warren Cann on drums and percussion. Their early work, characterised by a raw avant-garde energy, garnered a cult following but failed to achieve substantial commercial success. Albums like Ultravox and Ha Ha Ha, both in 1977, showcased a bold mix of punk energy and synth-driven textures, but mainstream recognition eluded them. By 1979, internal dynamics shifted. This led to Fox's departure to pursue a solo career. Enter Midge Ure, a Scottish musician with a penchant for synthesizers and a vision for the futures of electronic music. Ure had already gained notoriety for his work with bands like Slick and Thin Lizzy. His integration into Ultravox was serendipitous, coinciding with the burgeoning new wave movement that seamlessly blended rock with electronic elements. The addition of Ure as frontman and guitarist injected fresh energy into the band, setting the stage for their commercial breakthrough. Sleepwalk holds the distinction of being the first song Ultravox recorded with Ure at the helm. In February 1980, the band entered Rack Studios in London, collaborating with German producer Conny Plank, who had previously worked on their 1979 album Systems of Romance. Plank's expertise in electronic music production was pivotal in refining Ultravox's sound, steering them towards the lush, synth-driven aesthetic that would define their next phase. The decision to focus on a polished recording of Sleepwalk rather than a traditional demo was strategic, aiming to secure a deal with Chrysalis Records, a gamble that paid off. Released on June the 20th, 1980, Sleepwalk served as the lead single for their forthcoming album, Vienna. The track is a masterclass in electronic music, featuring pulsating synthesizers, driving rhythms, and Ure's evocative vocals. The lyrics, penned by drummer Warren Cann, delve into themes of detachment and existential angst, encapsulated in the haunting refrain, "Sleepwalk, rolling and falling, I'm choking and calling, name after name after name." The song's atmospheric quality and introspective lyrics resonated with audiences, propelling it to number 29 on the UK singles chart in August 1980. While it didn't crack the top 10, it was a significant step forward for a band that had previously struggled for mainstream attention. The success of Sleepwalk was a harbinger for the album Vienna, released on July the 11th, 1980. This record marked a departure from Ultravox's earlier sound, embracing a more polished and commercially viable synth-pop aesthetic. The album peaked at number 3 on the UK albums chart, solidifying the band's place in the upper echelons of the music industry. Vienna contained several standout tracks, but the title track, released as a single in January 1981, became one of Ultravox's most iconic songs, and it's one which we will definitely hear on this pod. It reached number 2 on the UK singles chart and remained there for 4 consecutive weeks, famously held off the top spot by Joe Dolce's novelty hit, Shut Up in Your Face. Despite this, Vienna became a defining anthem of the decade, its sweeping arrangement and haunting vocals cementing Ultravox's legacy. Sleepwalk remains a seminal track in Ultravox's discography, symbolising a period of reinvention and artistic growth. Its fusion of electronic innovation with lyrical depth continues to inspire artists and listeners alike, and thus cementing its place in the pantheon of synth-pop classics. For many, the song represents a bridge between the experimentalism of the 1970s and the sleek future of the 1980s. Next up, in the summer of 1980, Kate Bush unleashed Babooshka, a song that perfectly exemplifies her talent for storytelling and knack for blending theatricality with pop experimentation. As the lead single from her third studio album, Never Forever, Babooshka established itself as an art-pop masterpiece, intricate, mysterious, and wonderfully dark. Beneath its catchy melody lies a tale of mistrust, deception, and identity, delivered with Kate's signature otherworldly charm. This is our track 4. Catherine Bush, born July 30th, 1958 in Bexley Heath, Kent, grew up in a musical and creative household. The youngest of 3 children, she was surrounded by influences that shaped her artistry, Her father played the piano, her mother was an Irish folk dancer, and her older brothers John and Paddy were immersed in the arts. Kate's musical genius revealed itself early. She began writing songs as a child, and by her teenage years she had accumulated a portfolio of over 200 compositions. Her big break came thanks to Pink Floyd's Dave Gilmour, who, impressed by her raw talent, helped produce a demo tape that led to a contract with EMI Records when she was just 16. The world first met Kate Bush in 1978 with Wuthering Heights, a debut single that not only showcased her remarkable 4-octave range, but also made her the first female artist in the UK history to top the charts with a self-written song. By the time she released Never Forever in 1980, Kate had firmly established herself as an artist who refused to follow trends, instead creating immersive worlds within her music. Babooshka is one of Kate's most compelling narrative-driven songs. It tells the story of a wife who suspects her husband is no longer enamoured with her, so she decides to test his loyalty. Adopting the alias Babooshka, she writes him letters pretending to be another woman, a seductive, idealised version of her younger self. The lyrics juxtapose her insecurities with her husband's unwitting participation in the scheme. She wanted to test her husband. She knew exactly what to do. A pseudonym to fool him. She couldn't have made a worse move. She sent him scented letters, and he received them with a strange delight, just like his wife, but how she was before the tears, and how she was before the years flew by, and how she was when she was beautiful. Powerful stuff indeed. The plan backfires when her husband becomes enamoured with the fictional Babooshka, unaware that she is his wife all along. The dramatic irony of the story unfolds with over a pulsing bass line, shimmering synths, and the distinctive sound of a balalaika, played by Kate's brother Paddy. The title Babooshka evokes a sense of mystery, though the word itself is Russian for grandmother, or a traditional nesting doll. Kate has explained that she chose the name more for its sound and feel than its literal meaning, emphasising its exotic and lyrical quality. Musically, Babooshka is a testament to Kate Bush's willingness to experiment. It was one of the first songs where she incorporated the Fairlight CMI digital synthesizer, a cutting-edge instrument at the time that allowed her to manipulate sounds in ways that were revolutionary for pop music. The resulting track is both lush and eerie, blending traditional rock instrumentation with avant-garde techniques. The accompanying music video brought the song's drama to life. Bush plays both roles, the suspicious wife, dressed in a black bodysuit and veil, and her alter ego, Babooshka, who appears in a lavish warrior-like costume inspired by a 1970s fantasy illustration. With its theatrical flair and symbolic duality, the video solidified Kate's reputation as a visual artist as much as a musical one. Released on June the 27th, 1980, Babooshka became a commercial success, peaking at number 5 on the UK singles chart and spending 10 weeks on the chart overall. Internationally, it performed even better, reaching number 2 in France and Australia, among other countries. The song's enduring popularity speaks to its timeless appeal, and in 2021, it found a new audience when it went viral on TikTok, proving that Kate Bush's work remains as relevant as ever. Babooshka was a standout track on Never Forever, an album that marked significant milestones for Kate Bush. Released in September 1980, it was her first album to reach number 1 in the UK albums chart, making her the first British solo female artist to achieve this feat. The album blends a wider range of musical styles, from the quirky Army Dreamers, which we will also hear on this pod, to the haunting Breathing, reflecting Bush's boundless creativity. Babooshka endures as one of Kate Bush's most iconic tracks. It encapsulates her unique ability to tell intricate stories while pushing the boundaries of pop music. Its themes of jealousy, nostalgia, and self-sabotage are universal, resonating with listeners across generation. Moreover, the song's influence can be seen in how it opened the door for other artists to experiment with storytelling and theatricality in pop music. Musicians ranging from Tori Amos to Bjork have cited Kate Bush as a major influence, and Babooshka stands as a prime example of why her work remains so impactful. Babooshka isn't just a song, it's a window into Kate Bush's world, a place where music, storytelling and visuals collide to create something truly extraordinary. It reminds us of the fragility of the human relationship, the danger of mistrust, and the beauty of artistic innovation. 4 decades after its release, Babooshka continues to enchant, proving that Kate Bush's genius is as timeless as ever, and for this reason, it goes into our 80s pantheon. Our track 5 today is a band we met as recently as episode 8 with their second song on this podcast. It's those sons of Derry, the Undertones. Picture this, it's July the 5th, 1980. The Undertones released their 7th single, Wednesday Week. This track marks a departure from their earlier, more raucous punk sound, embracing a mellower pop-infused vibe. Here we go. The song was penned by the band's rhythm guitarist and primary songwriter, John O'Neill, during a Christmas break in December 1979. O'Neill drew inspiration from mid-60s acts like the Kinks and the Beatles, shifting away from the punk influences that had previously defined their sound. Wednesday Week is nestled within their sophomore album, Hypnotised, which hit the shelves on April 21st, 1980. The album itself was a product of sessions at Whistleout Studios in the Netherlands and Eden Studios in London, recorded between December 1979 and January 1980. Hypnotised showcased the band's evolution, blending punk rock with pop sensibilities, and it climbed to number 6 on the UK albums chart, marking the peak of their album chart success. Now let's talk chart performance. Wednesday Week made a notable impact, peaking at number 11 on the UK singles chart 3 weeks after its release. This achievement made it the band's second highest charting single, just behind My Perfect Cousin, which had reached number 9 earlier this year. Lyrically, Wednesday Week delves into themes of youthful love and fleeting relationships. The song opens with, "Here she comes to say goodnight, I'll get no sleep tonight. With a classroom vision she still can't see, she was the girl for me." The chorus reflects on the ephemeral nature of young love. Wednesday Week she loved me, Wednesday Week never happened at all. Those lines capture the bittersweet innocence of teenage romance, a recurring theme in the Undertones' repertoire. Wednesday Week also holds the distinction of being the Undertones' final single released under the Sire label. In December 1980, the band parted ways with Sire, and by March 1981 had signed a new contract with EMI. The song's production, helmed by Roger Bechirian, I hope that's how you say his name, is crisp and clean, allowing the band's melodic instincts to shine through. Bechirian, who had worked with the band on their debut album, returned to produce Hypnotised, helping to refine their sound and highlight their pop sensibilities. Wednesday Week stands as a testament to the Undertones' versatility and growth as artists. It captures a moment in time when the band were transitioning from their punk roots to a more polished pop sound, without losing the youthful energy and the sincerity that endeared them to their fans. The song remains a beloved part of their catalogue, reflecting the universal experiences of love, loss, and the passage of time. So as we revisit Wednesday Week, we're reminded of the Undertones' unique ability to blend catchy melodies with poignant lyrics, creating music that resonates across generations. Next, a solo artist, again seemingly ever present as a singer and media personality throughout the decade and into the 90s. It's the release of Leo Sayer's smooth, velvety hit, More Than I Can Say. If you're already humming along, congratulations, you're about to learn more about this song than you ever expected, and if you've never heard it, well, let me tell you, you're in for a treat. This is Song 6, Playlist 11. Leo Sayer was born Gerard Hugh Sayer on May the 21st, 1948 in Shoreham by the Sea, Sussex. He grew up in a modest, devout Catholic household, an altar boy who loved singing hymns and harmonising with his siblings. But young Gerard also had a knack for art, eventually pursuing graphic design at West Sussex College of Art and Design. It was during this time that he discovered blues, folk and rock and roll. Imagine Leo, a budding artist by day and a harmonica-wielding, Dylan-worshipping wannabe rock star by night. Sayer's music officially kicked off in the early 1970s when he began collaborating with David Courtney, a songwriter and producer who saw potential in his voice and quirky stage presence. Their partnership led to Sayer's debut album Silverbird, released in 1973. With his distinctive falsetto and that wild curly hair, Sayer was impossible to ignore. Hits like The Show Must Go On quickly established him as an artist to watch. Fast forward to the mid-70s, Sayer was a bona fide star. He won a Grammy in 1978 for his infectiously danceable single, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, and top charts with When I Need You, a heartfelt ballad that showcased his ability to connect emotionally with listeners. By the end of the decade, Leo Sayer had cemented himself as a pop star. By 1980, Sayer was on the hunt for a fresh sound, something nostalgic yet current. Enter More Than I Can Say. The song was originally written in 1959 by Sonny Curtis and Jerry Allison of the Crickets and first recorded in 1960. It was a moderate hit for Bobby V in 1961, but by 1980 it had largely faded from public memory. The story goes that Sayer stumbled upon a Bobby V Greatest Hits compilation while watching TV. Intrigued, he revisited the song and decided to give it a contemporary makeover. Partnering with producer Alan Tarney, known for his polished radio-friendly style, Sayer recorded his version of More Than I Can Say for his album Living in a Fantasy. The result was pure magic. Sayer's rendition transformed the relatively simple pop tune into an emotional powerhouse. His warm, pleading vocals combining with Tarney's lush production, layered keyboards, soft percussion, and a soaring melody gave the song a timeless quality. Released as a single in July 1980, More Than I Can Say became an instant hit. In the United States, it climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 5 consecutive weeks. It also topped the Billboard Adult Contemporary chart for 3 weeks, solidifying Sayer's crossover appeal. In the UK, the song peaked at number 2 on the official singles chart, where it stayed in the top 10 for 4 weeks in July and August 1980. Australia too embraced the song wholeheartedly. It spent 2 weeks at number 1 on the Kent Music Report chart, proving that Sayer's charm was truly global. More Than I Can Say also reached the top 10 in countries like Canada, Ireland and South Africa. Part of what makes More Than I Can Say so enduring is its simplicity. Sayer's delivery is earnest and tender, capturing the ache of longing without veering into melodrama. It's the kind of song you can't help but sing along to, whether you're driving alone at night or knocking something together for dinner in the kitchen. More Than I Can Say remains one of Leo Sayer's signature songs, a staple of soft rock playlists and nostalgic radio shows. Over the years, the track has been covered by numerous artists, but few versions have matched the emotional depth of Sayer's interpretation. Sayer's career, however, hasn't been without its challenges. In the 1990s, he faced legal and financial issues, including a high-profile lawsuit against his former manager, Adam Faith. Despite these setbacks, Sayer has never stopped creating. In 2009, he became an Australian citizen and has since released new music, including his 2019 album Selfie, recorded in his home studio. More Than I Can Say is a testament to Leo Sayer's ability to reinvent himself and connect with audiences across decades. It's the kind of track that reminds us that a simple melody and heartfelt lyrics can transcend time and space. So here's to Leo Sayer, the curly-haired crooner who gave us a love song for the ages. Right, finally today, the big one. Well now, if you went to a party as a child or an adult in the 80s, whether in the local scout hut or the local nightclub, there is a very high chance that you ruined your dress or trousers by sitting on some mucky floor in a row with friends while chanting, "Oops, upside your head." I said, "Oops, upside your head." Yep, it's time for the Gap Band and our final track of the day. How many memories does this bring back for you? Oops, Upside Your Head by the Gap Band. It's the track that didn't just make you dance, it made you sit on the floor in a line with your friends, swaying, clapping and laughing, whether or not you fully knew why. So buckle up, we're heading straight back into funk history. The Gap Band, comprising brothers Charlie, Ronnie and Robert Wilson, emerged from Tulsa, Oklahoma in the early 1970s. Their group name plays tribute to Greenwood, Archer and Pine Streets, the heart of Tulsa's historic Greenwood district, famously known as Black Wall Street. The district was also site of one of the most violent race massacres in US history in 1921, giving the band's name a deeper resonance. Growing up as preachers' kids, the Wilson brothers honed their musical chops in their father's Pentecostal church. Gospel music flowed through their veins, but their influences soon expanded to jazz, soul, and funk. After years of local gigs and small releases, their big break came when they caught the ear of producer Lonnie Simmons in Los Angeles. Simmons, who helmed Total Experience Records, turned the Gap Band into funky heavyweights. By 1979, they were armed with a signature sound, sprawling bass lines, punchy horns, and Charlie Wilson's charismatic vocals. They were poised to take over the airways. Now, let's set the scene. It's 1979, disco's dying grasp, funk's glorious rise, and the Gap Band is recording the Gap Band 2. Among its standouts track is a nearly 9-minute marathon, I Don't Believe You Want to Get Up and Dance, Oops. The song's quirky subtitle, Oops Upside Your Head, comes from the chant repeated throughout, while Charlie Wilson's playful vocal delivery adds a comedic edge. Lyrically, the song doesn't try to reinvent the wheel. Instead, it thrives on sheer groove. The bass line, built on an EG-AB pattern, locks into a hypnotic rhythm joined by slick percussion and call and response chants. Oops isn't a love song, a political anthem, or even particularly deep. It's a funk sermon on dancing humour and letting loose. You can hear echoes of Parliament's Funkadelics irreverence, but also hints of the Wilson brothers' gospel roots in communal energy. The track's humour is quintessentially Gap Band. Charlie Wilson's monologues are steeped in the Funkadelic tradition of blending music with personality. And of course, the song's playfully admonishing refrain, Oops upside your head, say oops upside your head, becomes its indelible hook. Oops Upside Your Head was a sleeper hit in the United States. While it didn't crack the Billboard Hot 100, it climbed to number 4 on the US R&B chart and gained traction in clubs, becoming a staple on the disco scene. The UK, however, truly embraced the track. It peaked at number 6 on the UK singles chart in 1980, where it solidified the Gap Band's reputation as international funk ambassadors. But it wasn't just the charts that made the song famous. It was the dance. Somehow, Oops Upside Your Head became the soundtrack to a party ritual. Sitting on the floor in rows, mimicking a sort of side-to-side and forward rowing motion in time to the beat. The origins of this dance aren't entirely clear. It may have started in UK clubs, possibly as a fun way to liven up group gatherings, but it became a phenomenon. Suddenly, no wedding, party or family reunion was complete without sitting on a floor where the polish was peeling off of it, in rows of people singing along to Oops Upside Your Head. The dance's charm lies in its absurdity. Here was a funk anthem that, instead of compelling you to stand and move, asked you to sit down and synchronise with strangers. It was communal, silly and unforgettable, making the song as much an experience as a track. Charlie Wilson's dynamic vocals became the group's signature, and he later found success as a solo artist, collaborating with Snoop Dogg, Kanye West and Pharrell Williams. The influence of Oops didn't end in the 1980s. In 1996, Snoop Dogg paid homage with Snoop's Upside Your Head, featuring Charlie Wilson himself. And in 2015, Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars retroactively credited the song's writers when similarities were noticed between Oops and their global smash hit, Uptown Funk. In this way, the Gap Band's groove transcended eras, inspiring generations of funk, hip-hop and pop artists. So why does this song matter? Well, Oops Upside Your Head is a cultural artifact, a time capsule. It embodies the joyous, carefree spirit of funk, while celebrating togetherness. Its ridiculous dance trend, inexplicably beloved across decades, underscores its magic. Funk is meant to bring people together, whether on the dance floor or in a straight line on the ground. It is a top-tier Pantheon entry, as it represents groups of songs in the 80s, many of which we will hear on this podcast, where people shed their inhibitions and shyness and danced in a silly way, whether it being push pineapples on the tree or, the conga, and my goodness, it was fun. So next time you hear Ups Upside Your Head, don't fight the urge. Get on the dance floor, grab the nearest friend, and row your way back to 1980. After all, funk is eternal. And the Gap Band proved it with one immortal groove. And that wraps up our deep dive into the first part of Playlist 11. But don't go anywhere just yet as summer 1980 continues. Next week, we'll be turning the spotlight on a lineup of hits that defined an era. We'll take you on a musical journey starting with Sheena Easton's Morning Train, swinging through Diana Ross's Upside Down, one of my favourites, and revving up with Bow Wow Wow's C30, C60, C90 Go. We'll also explore the unique sounds of Sweetheart Contract by Magazine, the smooth vibes of George Benson's Give Me the Night, and the dance floor magic of Kelly Marie's Feels Like I'm in Love. As always, we love hearing from you. Keep your comments and thoughts coming in, whether it's about today's episode or what you're looking forward to in the next. And just remember, you can contact us on email via completed80s@aol.com or on social media by following the 80s Mixtaper. Your insights and enthusiasm are what makes this podcast a vibrant collaborative experience. So, until next time, have a great week and get ready to dive into more iconic tracks with us. Take care.